start, I'd like to point out the fact that unless there's a major complaint, we are filming this session. And since all the residents could not be in attendance, this is our way of they'll be able to see what went on and hear your answers direct instead of secondhand through one of the council members.
Do you have lighting and makeup for me? Or?
Yeah. You can go in that little room out there.
The green room?
Yeah, the green room. We'd like to start certainly from thank you for coming today. This is
Glad it worked out.
certainly very well appreciated by all of us. And we'd like to go around the room and introduce one another.
Please.
I'm George Kempner.
I'm Angela Ficht. I'm Karen Dorr.
Dick Amity.
I'm Gordon Finch.
Bill Corpus.
Pat Niemeyer. Beverly Adair.
Dr. Bob Quenery.
And you are?
Oh, sorry, Troy Holler. Hello.
What do you do,
You want to
Troy?
tell them who they are?
Oh, sorry, Troy Holler. I'm the Director of Marketing at Watermark.
Okay. Troy's been with us about a little less than 4 months, and so I thought this was a great opportunity. And Karen had not been to the
I haven't been
for
here
a lot
before,
before,
so I'm
so
excited.
it seemed like a great opportunity to do this.
We're always happy to have people from the home office come and see us. You know, my definition of an expert has always been anyone from out of town. So you certainly fit that description of an expert.
Well, I'm David Barnes, the CEO of Watermark, and I'm thrilled to be here. So, Carlotta is one of my favorite communities. I love it.
And I'm Karen Molosky, and as we just said, it's my first opportunity to come in to visit. I was doing really good. Been with the company just a little under 3 years, and was doing really good before the pandemic, getting around. So this is great to be able to be back and visiting communities and feeling the warmth as you walk in. So really impressed, Ron.
And you probably felt Karen's touch, even though you haven't met her before. She came out of the hospital system, in Tucson and also Ohio. And so she's been heading up our COVID task force. So we were very, very fortunate to have someone with her background with infectious disease and all that, and dealing with the pandemic, and being able to guide our team and our task force to do some of the things that we've been having to do the last couple of years. So, and I know it's impacted all of you guys, as well. So.
Yeah, it certainly has. Put it mildly.
It's been a long couple of years, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been. Once we got your letter, David, from November 1st, and communication started between Chris Castile and our council, and it was decided initially that the residents were not going to be able to attend a virtual meeting with Chris. So the council took it on that we divided the number of residents equally among all of us. And we made contact with each resident to see if they had any questions or concerns about your letter. And of course there were some, and you'll hear about some of those as we go forward. In some cases they did not have email, or they did not open their email. They didn't see the letter in essence. So everyone, as they called to make appointments to see the residents, they questioned that whether they had read and or received your copy. If they had not, they arranged to make copies and give them a hard copy before they sat down and talked with them.
Nice, very nice.
So that's the background of this, okay?
And by the way, Chris sends his regrets. I think you guys know.
Yeah, we sorry to hear about his wife's parents and the difficult situation. Yes. So we'd like to continue, and so initially some of the questions, before we get into them, notice that the press release where Welltower, or the company today, announced that it has entered into definitive agreements to acquire 4 distinct senior housing portfolios for a prorated gross investment of around $1.3 billion, subject to the customary closing conditions. So $580 million of that seems to have been the 14 property senior housing portfolio that we're talking about. It goes on to say the portfolio is comprised of 8 rental and 6 entrance fee communities located in attractive markets across the United States, including Bellevue, Washington, Dana Point, California, and Alexander, Virginia. The Carlotta, we're assuming, is one of these.
Yes, one of those attractive markets.
But we're not in an attractive market.
We didn't write the press release.
Watermark retirement communities will be retained to manage the portfolio under a highly aligned RIDEA 3.0 management agreement. Could you tell us what that is?
Sure, but just by a little bit way of background, we've been involved in Carlotta for 20-some-odd years now, and what happened on December 1st is the fourth time that this has transpired in our tenure. So when we originally bought the fountains at Carlotta with our financial partner, was George Kaiser out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We sold to Sunrise Senior Living and our Capita. We came back in underneath our Capita as a third-party, manager. Our Capita then sold it to Colony North Star, and now Welltower has bought the underlying, assets from Colony North Star. So it really, I don't know how long you all have been here, but this has happened 4 times now. and the constant has been us. We've either, we were the fountains management, we were fountains before, and we changed our name to Watermark. So it really, from the perspective of, what has transpired over the last 20 years, it really is kind of business as usual. It really doesn't impact, the residents or the associates, because we are still the managing, agent for the community. The one slight distinction and difference is, under Colony, we entered into a triple net lease. So Watermark was the tenant and Colony was the landlord. And so what that meant was, we paid a lease, and then in theory, any profit above that lease we would, retain. Of course, in the last 2 years, that's not, transpired. It's been very challenging with occupancy and expenses and all the things that we had to do to keep everyone safe. So that's the big distinction. As of December 1st, it's no longer a triple net lease. It's what they call RIDEA. And so that just basically means that Welltower bought the underlying real estate from Colony. They turned around and hired us again as the management company. So that's the relationship that's here now.
Before I continue, you must understand that many of us know these things, but we're quoting questions from the residents who do not know those things.
Right.
In a life many years ago, I had 5 companies and 5 different corporations set up at 4 different fiscal years. So I know what all this is about.
Right.
But again, it's the residents who
Sure.
don't understand this, and that's why some of these questions are being asked.
I'm happy to answer whatever I can.
Good, thank you. In your letter, the quote, the current real property owner, Fountains Carlotta, so on and so on and so forth, will sell its entire interest in the community to EPC Trevi LLC, an affiliate of Welltower, which will in turn lease the community to other Welltower affiliates. So this is just a step down procedure?
Yeah, that's a structure that they have set up. We're not involved in that.
Understand.
Our relationship is very straightforward. They own the community and we manage it on behalf of and Trevi was their code name for this acquisition. I don't know where it came from.
Project name.
Yeah.
Project name, yeah. And see that they're registered in a number of different states,
Yeah.
Including California as a California Foreign Limited Liability Company, which they filed on October 26, 2021.
Yeah.
So, one of the couple questions that come up, because people who then instantly went to Welltower and started delving into their background, and all of a sudden it comes up a partnership with Oakmont. Well, we then of course know that Oakmont is a management company to Segovia, which is one of the places that most of us went through before deciding upon the Carlotta many years ago. So one of the questions was, is Oakmont Management Group now part of this organization?
No.
Has nothing to do, it's a
Completely independent,
standalone?
Yep.
And I assume the same thing is for Atria.
Correct.
They're the same type of relationship.
Yes.
in your letter, Mr. Barnes, this is a great news, quote, "This is a great news and we've excited that this change will enhance the community's financial strength and resources." Since you, Mr. Barnes, and Mr. Freshwater were really the owners of
A triple net lease, yeah.
Carlotta, and many needed repairs were not done during your stewardship of this. Can we now expect those needed repairs and improvements will be forthcoming?
That is one of the things that we're here. It's one of the other reasons why I wanted to be here. So in fact, the first question I asked Ron was, what deferred, capital projects, do you want to talk about? So, I can't speak directly about Welltower, but we've put together a comprehensive plan in front of them, and we'll seek their approval on different projects. And Ron obviously knows what your priorities are and all that.
Yeah,
So
that was the next question,
Yeah.
because some of those things, we realized, they needed to be fixed, and it's gotten pretty bad in some cases from the standpoint that I occasionally run a football squares pool, and one resident suggested I start a pool as when the gate was going to go down again. So, it is important, as far as we're concerned. Security cameras, which have not worked in the past 3 years, is another thing that a lot of tenants are very concerned about, because the cameras are there. The system doesn't seem to be, from what we hear, compatible with the software that was originally purchased for the cameras, but the cameras are there. That's something that a lot of residents are concerned with.
Okay. And I can talk, I won't talk about cameras specifically, but I can just tell you about our process. Is we put together a comprehensive list for capital improvements and projects like this. We will sit down with Welltower and go through each one of them. We'll talk about the merits, the pros, and the cons. They will determine, how much money they can or want to, invest in any particular property. And then ultimately, Ron will sit there and prioritize all these things. So I can't promise that we'll replace cameras, but I can tell you the process. Our cameras are on the list. Yeah, okay. So they're on the list, and we'll just have to go through them. And we have not done that with Welltower yet, but they did their due diligence leading into this, and they have, the budgets and the capital budget for 2022. So,
Good,
yeah.
good. I think that will make many residents very happy hearing that. Another few questions came up as far as, and I've already expressed our delight that you people are here in front of us today, because we haven't had that opportunity. And some questions were, quote, if Chris Castile were a resident, what would be his concerns and issues, unquote. And since I've been here a little over 4.5 years, I have never had the pleasure of having anyone from Tucson, I know it's another state, visit us and sit in front and expose themselves to some questions for the residents or the council. And this is why these questions have come up, because one of Chris's predecessors, a long time ago, we have some long-term people in here. I guess his name was Hughes. I don't know the gentleman. However, he was here frequently and always got the reactions from what I heard from the residents as far as the good things and, of course, mostly the bad things, I'm sure. Praise goes not as far as concerns in the mind of the person who's giving them. So anyway, we would like to see that more often. We would like to see, if for no other reason, just the ability of the council and or the residents to seek the advice and express their concerns, because people feel that we do a lot of talking, but no one seems to hear us. Forget about whether it's done or not. It's just they want to be heard.
Sure.
Okay, they want to be heard. And I've read many things about some of your interviews where you have talked about this, and I know it's important in your theory, but making it happen is two different things.
You got it.
Many residents, as you have said already, have seen many ownership changes in the past without any significant changes. Now, most of us know this, that this isn't going to happen. But the greatest concern that the residents have when it gets down to money, And/or, you know, everyone's favorite FM station, you know, WII-FM, what's in it for me? So, we know that that's not going to happen, but the fact is, they would like to feel comfortable in the fact that, okay, everything that's been going on is gonna be just continue, as you already said. And we realize that the verbiage you had to use in many cases is dictated by the social statutes of the state of California. So we know that, but again, many people don't know that, so they come up with these questions. So the question of money, so let me ask you a few questions if you can answer. Carlotta's performance, this is how are the monthly increases calculated for the Carlotta? Carlotta performance only or all locations combined?
How's Carlotta's performance?
Yeah.
How are the increases
How are the
calculated?
increases
Is it-
determined?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with market. You know, as you guys know and well know, you know, that right now our biggest challenges is staffing. We've got wage pressures that we've never seen before. Just finding, you know, staff to run your dining room, you know, Ron was just sharing what a challenge, you know, that is, you know, right now. We've got additional costs that we've never seen before in the history of our company. So it's very, very challenging. You know, what we look at is, you know, what are the rate increases that are happening in the market? What are the rate increases and additional expenses that, you know, we have to bear each year? And we try to keep the rate increases as small as we, you know, possibly can, but we have to run this profitably too, so we can reinvest back into the community. I will say, I absolutely totally agree with you. You know, the last 2 years under the triple net has been a challenge. It's been a very, very difficult, even in their press release, you know, they noticed what was the term they used? Fair or balanced, you know, relationship or aligned.
Yes,
You know,
aligned.
Yeah, the triple net leases, what we've learned is there's horrible alignment with the triple net lease. So I think, you know, and again, I can't speak for Welltower and what they will and won't approve. We have other buildings with them, and they've been great partners. So I don't know why it would be any different, you know, here for sure. That they have the capital, they have the means to do the right thing, and it's many of your business people, you know, it's you look at it and you say, okay, what's the return on investment? Does it make sense? How is it what the residents need and want? Is it what future residents, you know, need and want? So that's how they're going to make their decisions on whether it's capital improvements coming in or whether it's, you know, rate increases. It's all that, you know, it's all kind of factored into just running it, you know, with a strong, you know, fiduciary financial responsibility that we have.
Going into Ron's problem here, I'd hate to own a business in the Coachella Valley right now.
I'm telling you, yeah.
Because there's a limited labor pool to begin with. And now when you face some of the increases that have been mandated from an hourly pay standpoint, I happen to be in Australia just the same year that they raised the minimum up to $15, and McDonald's hamburgers were $15 a piece.
Yeah.
So
The scarcity is the other
we all
piece.
know the problems we have in hiring people. Every business has them. And every business, not just here in the Coachella Valley, but all over.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that seems to be improving, and it's a little bit anecdotal at this point, but, you know, prior to the stimulus money running out, I think it was September 1st,
Yes.
we couldn't even get people to show up for interviews. You know, or they would say, I'll be for the interview, and they wouldn't show up at all, or they would even accept the job and then not show up to work on their first day. We see that across the country changing a little bit for the better. I don't know if you're seeing that.
We're seeing it in the non-skilled jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
So for clinical staff, we're still having.
But they have to go out on interviews to continue to collect
Yeah.
unemployment compensation.
Well, I don't know if that's what's going on, or if they just now realize that, you know, they're gonna have to, you know, get back to work. So we're hopeful, but these are definitely, I've never seen anything like this in 30 years. It's been very, very challenging, as you guys, you know, you read about it here in your news, so.
Another area of concern in connection with this is that residents do understand the numbers game. They do understand that we are now literally at the same number of occupancy, of census as you call it, as we were December 31st of 2020.
Right.
And that is, you know, That doesn't make a whole bunch of people jump up and down with happiness because we're gonna translate that into increases, which is normal. But the fact is that hopefully we're doing everything that we can be doing to increase those numbers, because not just in the state of California, but I'm sure in Arizona also, home sales have been tremendous.
Yeah.
And people are getting much more money than they ever thought they'd get for their house. One of the problems here in the Coachella Valley is the fact of supply. There is very, very limited homes up for sale. And so those people who have sold, and hopefully we're going to move into a CCRC or some other form of retirement community, maybe some of those have done that already, and that's the fear from the standpoint of how many people are out there still looking to move into a place like this.
Yeah, I think the other thing psychologically that's going on, again anecdotally, but I think we're learning, that this is a new normal. I think we're learning that, if you think about, where we were a year and a half ago, and again, Karen was kind of leading the charge on it, that was without question the most stressed I've ever been in 30 years of doing this. And a lot of it was because, we just didn't know what to do. We were, faced with a pandemic that was, going through our communities, and how do we deal with that? I remember, we ended up setting up a storage and inventory place in our conference room because we couldn't source PPE, we couldn't get masks and gloves and all that. And I've had some very bizarre conversations with people from, Asia, saying, you send me $50,000, I'll send you some masks. I'm like, I'm not gonna send you $50,000, just, figuring out how to do that. What it's like now, and Ron and I were just talking about when we were walking out there, is, we know how to mitigate things. We know the proper things to do. It doesn't mean we can keep everyone from, getting, sick, but we know how to treat it. I think the health systems know how to treat it, better. So we're in a much better position when we're, April of 2020. But it still, I think, psychologically weighs, on people that, I think they're hesitant to move into, congregate living. And our job, and actually Troy's job, is to really, sell the story and understanding that, A, it is safe, and B, my mom lives in one of our communities, and I can't imagine her being at home this last year and a half, trying to deal with groceries and banks and, all that kind of stuff. So, Troy's really working hard to tell the other side of the story that, we're actually not only are we safe, but we're the place where you can actually thrive. And, my mom sitting in her home by herself after my father passed away, wasn't the right thing for her, but we also got, with a wide brush of, what was happening in some nursing homes on the East Coast and all that, got painted with a pretty wide brush. So I think as an industry, we're starting to tell the story. I think people are starting to understand it. I think adult children are understanding, what really makes, someone thrive. And it's, you can maybe you can be more safe in your home, but can you? And then there's all the idea of just, what does it take to be really well all the way around. So I think we're starting to see it. We're seeing incremental improvement across the United States. We're in 20 different states. So we're seeing occupancy start, coming back up. It's not coming back as fast as we'd like it to, but I think we've done a lot of good things to position ourselves. So.
Well, the industry also got some very bad press, very bad publicity
Absolutely.
for some of the things that happened, especially in New York and a few other places, and that might have caused some people to come up with a second thought.
Absolutely.
Especially the kids, as far as their parents are
Or
concerned.
hesitation, if nothing else.
Or hesitation, because and also, I'm sure you realize this, and I've seen it in many other facilities, that some of the people, some of the residents who were isolated, and they're still remaining isolated by choice. I don't know how many of them are ever going to come out. So the psychological damage that has been done to some of the residents, some of our residents, is quite severe.
Yeah.
Quite severe. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that no one really, including your staff, has ever gone through one of these pandemics before. You really didn't know what to do.
Right.
And it was just hit or miss, well, let's try this, and if that doesn't work, we'll try this.
And that was the stress I was referring to, is, when it's one thing to deal with something like this and go, okay, here's the playbook. All we gotta do is this, 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 and this. The country was making up the playbook as we kind of went along, and trying to figure out. I remember just the whole mask thing was crazy. At the beginning was, we were told that, mask wearing, if people brought masks into the community, they would actually bring, COVID into your building. It's just, we just had to get through, and I think the scientists learned, what was so, and we figured out how to mitigate it as best we can. And again, when I say we, I'm talking about collectively we. I mean, you guys were as an important part of the solution, and it was really fascinating with the vaccination. I would say resoundingly across the country, our residents, we got to 95% vaccination rates with our residents like that. I was discouraged that we had to force our associates, to do it, but we did, we had to, and.
Which was not the case here, as you know.
Yeah, you guys did really, really well here, with both on the resident side and the associate side. But we had other buildings where, we put a mandate in. You must, if you want to work at Watermark, you must get must get vaccinated.
Then as your mother lives in one of these facilities, my son-in-law's mother lives one outside of Austin, Texas. They never even closed the dining room.
Yeah.
And the mayonnaise that they put in were nothing.
Yeah.
And they did not have a COVID case either. So you don't know.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't know which step to take. And certainly Ron did a great job in how he kept us all safe, and he's to be commended for that.
Yep.
But the fact is still that it happened, and no one really knew these things or whatever was going to work.
Yeah.
Continuing,
Okay.
what I was talking about is that most of the residents, they feel that we're living in the Carlotta is deteriorating, just as an aging facility does deteriorate. And so these repairs that they have been talking about is really important in their eyes, because we feel that you just don't have a whole bunch of happy campers talking about the Carlotta the way it used to be talked about by the residents. And I think it's from a marketing standpoint, you got people coming through here on a tour, they don't want to see lights that are burned out. They don't want to see certain things that are not happening. So again, I'm hopefully you're all aware of that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question relative to that? I'm just curious, because you manage a number of different places, and we're talking about finances.
Mm-hmm.
How do you compare apples and apples and apples and oranges? Because how do you compare an older place to a newer place, and kind of compare it financially and decide what you're going to do to fix things?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, there is no apples and apples. Every building is different. The Carlotta is different than any other building we have in our portfolio. And that's kind of by design. There's companies that build the same building, and they know exactly, it's just cookie cutter kind of approach. What we do is, again, we put those capital plans together. There are benchmarks in our industry. So we can sit there and say, for Carlotta's 204 units, and the average CapEx needs per year are going to be X number of dollars per unit. And we can sit there and say, okay, we put together a list, and it's over benchmark. And then we can have a conversation with Welltower about that and say the reason it's over benchmark is because we have had deferred maintenance. It has been, coming out of the pandemic, finances were tight. And so we can have a very intelligent, informed conversation. We also, having done this for 30 years, and we have other buildings that maybe aren't the same as the Carlotta, but it might be the same era as the Carlotta. We can benchmark internally as well and say, boy, we spend X number of dollars over here, we're asking for X number of dollars at Carlotta. Does that kind of make sense? Is it below? Let's see, is it above? I'll talk about that. So that's the process we go through, and we will go through with Welltower. Benchmarking, but a lot of it is just local. It's Ron sitting there and saying, this is what we need. This is what's important to the residents. Yes, this is what's gonna get our residents to refer, because we have to fill the building back up, that's in everyone's best interest. So it's all those things kind of coming together and figuring out, what can we do and when should we do it, but we do benchmark a lot to make sure we can present a plan that we can kind of defend to anyone, whether it's Welltower or Colony or anyone, so, yeah.
Any other questions on this slide?
I do, George. A little bit more about the available monies in order to update.
Mhm.
We, the residents, are really the best salespeople there are.
Yep.
No question.
And it's gotten so difficult to be excited about recommending the Carlotta.
Okay.
And I'm a little hazy. Is there actually going to be more money to do some updates, major ones? And if so, will the residents be able to know, like in 2023, we're gonna redo the decor in the lobbies and the hallways. In 1924, we're gonna do the much needed work in the kitchen, which was put in before there were even casitas.
Yeah.
So this little kitchen is still serving
Right.
many, many more people than it was ever planned for. So is there more money, and are we gonna know, like ahead of time, that, oh, well, I can be happier if I knew
The plan.
that something was gonna happen?
Sure we do.
Yeah, so as far as, is there gonna be money? Certainly Welltower, you guys have done your homework on Welltower, they have the funds. So it's our job and Ron's job to sit there and put the plan together and give the why. What, to your point, is if we did this, we can increase resident referrals, we can, anything that's safety, health, that rises to the very top of the list always. So, and we put together, I don't know if we have a 5-year plan here or not, but we have a property management system that, looks at, these physical assets. So look at the boiler, and it'll sit there and say, the average length of a boiler, life cycle of a boiler is, 20 years. And we're in year 17 right now. So we better project to have to replace
But
that.
is there any more reason that we're thinking this is gonna happen now than it was a couple of years ago?
The triple net lease structure was not conducive for alignment.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The triple net lease structure that we had up until December 1st, and when Welltower came in, was not conducive to the types of projects that you're talking about. If you think about it, what was basically going on is, Colony owned the physical asset. They leased, when I say everything in this building, they owned everything at the Carlotta. And then we leased the building from, Colony. And we paid a lease payment no matter what was happening financially. So as the census started going down, and the revenue started going down, we're still making the same payments as if it was back up here. There was no, they were very, very good partners, they gave us some relief. But that's the lack of alignment, and even in the press release, that's why that word was in there, is that alignment has been removed, that lack of alignment has been removed. So I think we will make really good decisions, again with Ron, really understanding the local market and the building and what your needs are. In Welltower, it does have the assets, the money to do things. Now, can I sit there and say they'll approve everything we want? No, I can't say that, but we'll go through the process. We'll know more in the next 3 or 4 months as we go through this process, with them. In fact, are we meeting this week?
This week.
We actually have a meeting this week to go through the capital improvement projects. So
And the budgets for this year.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And will we be appraised of, in
Yeah.
general,
Yeah,
of
Ron
what
can-
to expect over a
Absolutely.
period of time?
Yeah, Ron can sit there and say, here's what was approved, here's what we're doing, here's what we're going on. We can put a calendar schedule for you.
It'll be a little time before we'll have that level of detail, but the conversations, it won't have been a week since the deal closed, that we'll already be in conversations trying to get that very information. Your team, Ron, they want that as badly as you do. They want to be able to give you that insight into what the plan is going forward. So as soon as we have that, yes.
And I know Ron a long time, he's not shy, so that's a good thing too.
Yes.
He'll ask for what he needs.
Any other questions? Well, let's going back to what you just were talking about, is the fact that, I don't know why the CCRC councils that I communicate with, but the single greatest problem when I ask, okay, council, what are your residents' single greatest gripe about the facility you rent? And, I expected to hear maybe food, maybe a few things like that. Communications is number one. Communications down. Everyone that I've talked to complains about communication. So what she just asked you will this be communicated? I think it's very, very important to start out with gaining this trust back in a number of residents who right now are a little hesitant about recommending a Carlotta, to be very honest with you.
Sure.
They need to be told what's going on. And I can understand, Ron can only talk so much about this, because you can't talk about what he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that again, this information has to be brought downward to the residents. The single greatest comment, the single greatest word that we heard from residents were, if this is again a quote from your letter, and I know that you had to say this word for word, so I understand that, but the residents don't. Quote, if you prefer that your agreement not be assumed, you retain the same rights under your current residency agreement to terminate the agreement, unquote. The question then was, what do you mean? They want me to move out? That's what was interpreted by a lot of residents. Now we know, okay, but you're here to tell them in that little box over there, you don't want them to move out.
I don't want you to move out.
And
I don't even know why that had to be in there, quite frankly. I don't know.
it does say
Some attorney, some.
No, social studies,
Social
services in the state of California. I've got it, it's word for word,
Well,
what you instructed to say.
Some attorneys knew that and helped
And
with
had
it.
you put that in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Here is also some.
Can I talk about communication too?
Of course.
And we're very, very sincere about this, and I hope Ron feels that way. And we actually studied this. We hired the University of Arizona Eller MBA students to look at the balance between autonomy and control. So we're based in Tucson, Arizona. We're in 21 different states. And, we learned early that if we thought we were going to run anything from Tucson, Arizona, in Connecticut or anywhere else, we were in trouble. And so, we really do entrust Ron to run this like it was his own business. And then our job is to provide him with resources to help him do his business, whatever that may be. So I think it's been probably a little frustrating for Ron's last couple of years, both with the pandemic and under this triple net lease structure is less than ideal for him to make decisions, with. I think, you guys are very, very fortunate to have an executive director, like Ron. And I think he will be freed up to be able to communicate more effectively because he'll have better data. And I'm always, the kind of person that, I'd rather just tell you, what my truth is rather than dance around it, as best I can. So you may not be always like our answer, but we'll tell you the answer as we know it. And so I think this is going to be a new day for Carlotta.
I think that's very important, and I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Because I think most of us, we can accept the answers that we necessarily, and it's not danced around in your own term.
Right.
We need to hear it straightforward. Many of us come from businesses way back when we were younger, that was a definite requirement.
Yeah.
That had to happen.
And as a relatively new guy at the company, one of the things that I'm most impressed about is how hard the Watermark team works to communicate with the owners of the buildings. And the amount of work that Karen alone spends on this, communicating with them. So I think one of the things that you could expect is that what you're communicating to us today will make it back to them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's maybe an important element. For
Very
you
important. Very important. That the residents' suggestions are at least heard, not necessarily come back with the answers that they would like to hear.
Right.
However, they have been communicated, and now it's time to communicate back.
Right.
And I think that's very important. And I can understand about a triple net lease.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. It's just like today, you sell a house in today's market, no one worries about, well, you're gonna fix this, you're gonna fix that, you're gonna fix that. those things never enter the conversation right now. So I understand that.
Very good.
Any other questions in that line? Bill?
While you're talking about fixing things, preventive maintenance around here would certainly improve the living conditions and so forth and so on. Fixing carpeting with duct tape is ridiculous. And we're not talking about a big expense on some of these things, but permanent maintenance is a main item that people complain about, and the supervision of the maintenance. I can give you several examples, for instance, but there's weeds growing up through the space markers out of the swimming pool. The cushions out there are all falling apart. Stairwells have duct tape on them, patching the, not only doesn't this look good if you're trying to sell somebody something, but it's aggravating to be paying money and see this type of thing. So preventive maintenance would certainly be an improvement.
Yeah, and we're gonna walk the whole building. We walked part of it this morning, and then we'll walk the rest of it, and we'll look for those things in particular, so.
Probably the second most comments and concerns we heard from residents was, many residents, to be very honest with you, would like to see Watermark replaced as a management company rather than the owners. So, again, speaking for the residents, okay, and it's that the perception that has happened here, and it needs to be rectified. And I think it can be rectified by not only communicating or increasing the communication skills as far as they're concerned. That will fix many, many things.
Sorry to hear that.
Another resident also would, I guess has never gotten an answer that they can grab, in, which is, would like to pay their monthly bill with a credit card. And that's been submitted a number of times. And I'm sure you know the reasons why people would like to pay with a credit card. But the fact is, even willing to pay, a fee for having to pay with a credit card. But anyway, that is something.
Okay.
And
We can take that back.
I think you can at least come back with an answer for that. I don't really have any more questions as far as what anyone else has to ask. Again, we really appreciate the time. We know you're busy. That you've given us this morning, and at least hearing some of the concerns of the residents who we represent and are advocates for.
Well, and I want to make sure you guys know we really appreciate your role, because a good resident council provides Ron with the feedback of, this is what the residents are telling me, this is their hot issues. It helps him prioritize his requests. So I really do appreciate you guys and your professional manner in which you approached all these subjects. And I understand there's a lot of could be some pent-up frustration around some of this stuff. And we will certainly work as diligently as hard as we can to resolve those issues.
I have a question that maybe Karen can answer. It's really just part of my interest, I guess. But it's been expressed here that from people that have been here a long time, that there's a different look of people now. They're more infirm. They're more. Is that same thing true at other places?
Yes, it is.
Because it makes a difference. We went through the COVID thing, and nobody could come in, and people kept dying. So of course there was a problem. But if we start out with unhealthy people to begin with, then the whole thing's worse. That's why I'm curious to know if it's true.
And I welcome my colleagues to respond as well, but we do, yes, our residents are a little older, and in many cases, we are seeing those that are coming forward right now and interested in moving do have more health issues, need more support. So yes, we are seeing that, and we have spent a lot of time in the last year getting comfortable as you can be in managing and living in our new normal, right? And I think upping our game in terms of our ability to support residents wherever they are as they want to enter and come to our communities.
It's interesting, when we started 30 years ago, the average age of someone moving into one of our communities was 79 years old. It's now 83. So it's gone up, in 30 years, it's gone up 4 years. But what I will say is the 83-year-old is as healthy as a 79-year-old.
Yes, that's true, but the age factor here, when I moved in a little over 4.5 years ago, was 83.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to 87, 88 now.
It might be,
Here.
yeah.
Here.
The average age in place, yeah.
Yes.
Well, you saw that this last week with the 90-year-old birthday party.
Yes,
How many people were at the table?
yes,
Wow.
You know,
exactly.
It's a big table.
And in fact,
And then tomorrow we're having a 102-year-old birthday party. So.
in Bill Corkins' case, Bill, when you moved in 17 years ago, how many walkers were around? None.
No wheelchairs, we had one electric one, and get a kick out of this, there are meters here in this building for each unit. He would plug his electric machine out in the hallway so that it didn't show up.
Didn't need his utilities.
It's changed.
Yeah.
And it's continuing, as baby boomers are now coming in here, in various CCRCs and other seniors' retirement areas. It's a whole new ballgame, because they now bring, to give you an example, when I moved in here, the people who had email capability was 62%.
Right,
It's now 75%.
yeah.
So the people who are moving in, 95 to 98% of them have email capabilities, where before it just wasn't there.
My mom is 92, and she does Pilates on her iPad twice a week. I'm just like, it's just
No,
amazing.
it's my-
The technology is there, the residents are really figuring it out, which is kind of
Yes.
exciting, so. Yeah, and again, we also study this too, because we got, the baby boomers, are approaching us and hitting our communities. And, we studied, what are the factors that the boomers are looking for. And one of the top 3 things they're looking for is choice. And we learned that probably 15 years ago. That's gonna be one of the most important drivers. So like CC's, we can't wait to get CC's back online.
Very important here.
Yeah, because again, you want to have choice of dining,
Exactly.
of venues and all that, and that's how you attract the younger, healthier, resident, is by having, options and choice, that, they can almost craft, their day the way they want to craft their day, so.
And in addition, it'll also tell the residents that we're getting back to quote normal.
Yeah, normal, whatever that is.
Whatever that is, and
Right.
it will be a new normal,
Yeah.
no question, but CC's is very important here.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, I mean, it's just, we gotta find this out.
Understand.
Back on, so.
And I think people do understand that.
Yeah,
They know why it isn't open,
yeah.
but they still, once they see it open, then it's going to change.
I think for the most part, residents and family members, for the most part, have understood what the last 2 years, you guys have lived it. We've had a few examples of folks who didn't understand it and didn't appreciate it. I got a call from one of our managing directors, and a daughter was outside one of our communities, and this is when we were in the early days of being locked down. And she was threatening to call the police if we didn't allow her into the building to see her mother. And it wasn't any hardship, we made hardship requests and grants and all that, but in the beginning, we were trying to keep everyone alive. And, she said, what should I do? I said, call the police, dial the phone for her. And the police came, and they basically said, ma'am, these people are trying to keep your mom alive, what are you doing? And, and we've come a long way psychologically from, those days. But you're right, it's a new normal, we're trying to figure out
What the new normal is going to be.
yeah, and how do you market it? How do you attract, the future residents? I'm very hopeful. It's, like I said in the beginning part of it, it was very stressful, but, I look at it and I'm starting to see how we can, market better or do better or communicate better or all these things, and create, really a new future and start getting back to, filling our buildings up, and everything is better. Even you talk about Welltower, you talk about CapEx requirements. When they see a building starting to lease back up, it's easier for them to approve, replacing the kitchen or do all that. So it's in all our vested interests to work together on that. And that's why resident councils are so important, is if they're really good, strong partners with our executive directors, you guys can really help us a lot and help each other.
And the residents understand that.
Yeah.
They do, here anyway, they do understand
That's
that.
right.
We want the numbers to increase,
Yeah,
especially when we had 95% just a few years ago.
yeah.
So,
So,
any other questions?
Well, just one statement that maybe goes to marketing, but you're probably aware, but in this valley, we just have a whole bunch of brand new places in competition.
Yeah.
More all the time.
Right.
And of course, they're new and shiny and
Yeah,
Nice penny as you
Absolutely.
referred to.
I'd like to go back to a little bit on Bev's comments about knowing when some of these things that we've been waiting for and for many years.
Mhm.
And I know you said you're gonna have a timeline, and you're gonna work on it, but the people that I talked with will wanna know, are we talking about months or years? I know you can't say, well, it's gonna be March or this, whatever, but it just appears like the same requests have gone on for years. And so I'd like to be able to go back to the people that I talked with and said, yes, we addressed that, and here's some positive. And is there any way that you can express some confidence in how soon some of these
Sure.
things will be taken care of?
Yeah, so when we put our capital improvement budgets together, we do them by quarter. So we sit there and we say, here are the projects we'd like to do, the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So let's get through the process with Welltower and Ron. And what they do is they will approve a capital improvement budget for the entire year. They'll sit there and say, okay, you've got X number of dollars, and here are the projects we approve, and then we have what we call rollover projects, and that's what's happened to you guys, is we've just been having to roll stuff over. So Ron will have that information. Now, I will be honest and straightforward about this. Sometimes we'll get halfway through the year, and let's say we're continuing not to lease up, or we're struggling again. What they may have approved in January of the year, they now will have hesitation on the third quarter, or vice versa. If we're doing even better, that project that got rolled over, Ron might sit there and say, hey, I'd like to put that on Q4, and here's why, and you might have a very receptive, partner that says, yeah, we can do that. So that's the process it'll be. They approve a capital budget for the whole year by quarter, and we can share that with you once it's approved.
And it will be shared with the residents.
Yeah, Ron can share that with you.
And it will.
Yeah, it will.
And again, it needs to be refreshed based on what's happening,
course.
because for the
Yeah.
reasons that David just described.
And there has been a lot of capital money being put into the property, but it's not things that you see.
So that's important,
Life
too.
safety.
It's the worst kind, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who cares about a new roof, except for if it's leaking?
When the pump went out on the air conditioner, that was, most people had no idea. And if they knew it went out, they certainly didn't know how much it cost.
Yep.
So that's important, that.
Be communicated, yeah. Very good. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you all. Sorry it's been so long since I've been here. It's
Great
just-
to be here.
You're always invited.
Yes.
Right. Come back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Great to be
Great.
here.
I don't know if you guys have more meetings or any more discussions, or
For your
Pardon?
do you have more stuff that you guys will talk about?
No,
Okay.
no, we're finished. It was all for you today.
I feel so special.
I know you should.
Thank you.
Yeah,
For your
thank
time.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your help. I do appreciate it.